My name is Lauren, and I am the product training manager here at Universal Companies. I'm also a licensed cosmetologist with over 10 years of experience in the industry. And welcome to the Art of Tinting, where we are going to learn the basics of color theory and how you can use these fundamental principles with your lash and brow mixing so that you can take your skills to the next level and better serve your clients. So we're going to talk a lot about color in this video because color theory is truly the foundation and the knowledge that you need to have in order to be successful with mixing tints. It helps you to know how colors work together, how you can create beautiful outcomes, and how you can manipulate other colors for a better result. As a fresh and new stylist, even with a lengthy cosmetology program behind me, I myself was still not very confident in mixing colors when I first started out because I was really missing the color theory piece to the puzzle. But I worked with some really great senior stylists who helped to guide me and taught me that I can use the color wheel, and they actually hung a color wheel in our back bar room to help me understand how colors work together and how I could make informed decisions on coloring and toning hair. And a lot of practice went into that, and with regular use and using these tools for mixing, I was able to gain a lot more knowledge to help grow my skills as well. And so that is what I hope to pass along to you today, is the confidence in your tinting mixing capabilities and to provide some of the tools and skills that I feel are very necessary to be successful. So this is the color wheel. Like I mentioned, the color wheel is the best tool to keep on hand when you are learning how to mix tint colors. This helped me tremendously throughout my career. This is a very basic color wheel that has 12 distinct colors. There are advanced color wheels and even some color spheres that are available, and they're going to dive much deeper into different hues and shades of color and representations of light and darkness or whites and blacks. However, I recommend just begin with this basic 12-point color wheel. And that's really going to be your best tool. On this basic wheel, you will have 3 categories of colors. You have your primary colors, your secondary colors, and your tertiary colors. So your primary colors are going to be your red, blue, and yellow. These are the 3 colors that are used to create all of the other colors on the color wheel, and they are positioned to form a triangle that is equal distance between them. So either way you go, it's an equal distance around the wheel. These colors are used to create your secondary colors. These are going to be violet, green, and orange. And you can see here on our wheel, here's our triangle of the primary colors. And these secondary colors are going to be positioned equally between their 2 mixing primary colors. For example, if you mix equally your yellow and your blue, you'll have your green outcome. If you mix your blue and your red, you'll have your violet outcome. And if you're mixing red with yellow, you'll have orange. Your tertiary colors are what's remaining on your wheel, the last 6 colors. And these are a result of mixing a primary color with a secondary color. So starting from the bottom right here, when you're mixing your blue primary color with your violet secondary color, you're going to receive a blue violet. If you use your primary color of blue and mix with green, you're going to receive a green blue color. If you are mixing your yellow with green, you will receive a yellow green. Yellow with orange becomes orange yellow, orange with red is an orange red, and red with violet is a red violet. So those are your color wheel options. But what does that actually mean for hair color or brow color? Because natural hair typically is not going to be green, right? We can definitely color you and give you some beautiful vivid colors to make your hair green, but naturally it's not going to be the starting point. However, there are undertones within the hair that are not as noticeable, and that's typically going to fall on one of these colors of the color wheel. It's not going to be the color you see first. That's going to be your brown, your blondes, your auburns. But underneath those main colors of the hair, you will have an undertone. So an undertone, just to clarify, an undertone is a more subtle hue that's beneath the main color of the hair, and it affects how tint will look differently on different people. All of the basic colors in your color wheel have the potential to fall into 2 categories of color. You have your warm tones and your cool tones. So all of your warm tones are going to range from your bright yellow all the way down here to your red violet. All of those are warm tones for undertones. And then we have our cool tones, which will range all the way from your yellow greens down to your violet shades. Those are considered cool tones. And not shown here are neutral tones. Neutral tones are going to meet somewhere directly in the middle between warm and cool. They won't fall necessarily to one side or the other. Now that you know what is on the color wheel and how those undertones can peek through in the color of the hair, let's talk complementary colors. So your complementary colors, they are going to be your go-to tool when learning how to create customized tint formulas. Complementary colors, when you're talking tint, are going to allow you to easily correct undesirable tones within the hair, like brassy oranges, or you can balance the hair for a more natural tone, or even just adjust the shade of the color slightly so that it's not overly ashy or blue-green in color. Complementary colors are going to sit directly across from each other on your color wheel. For example, if you have a client whose hair is too yellow, you can use the complementary color that is directly across from that to begin to neutralize that over yellow, that brassy color as it shows up in hair. So in this case, you would use something with a more violet tone since it falls directly across. Same thing can be said for orange. If your client has an undesirable orange tone to their hair, you can cancel that out by using the blue directly across. And a lot of times when you're toning hair specifically, you'll hear a lot about purple shampoos and how great they are for toning the hair down and making sure it doesn't look brassy or yellow. And while that's absolutely true and fantastic, it can be great to brighten up yellow hair directly across. Here's our violet with the purple shampoo. But if you're more of an orange level, your client's more of an orange level, you're going to have much better results by toning with a blue tone color. And there are actually blue shampoos that are on the market that work great to tone down orange versus the purple shampoo, which will tone down your yellows. And then lastly, same can be said for red. If your hair is red and you're looking to go back to a more natural brown color, you might have to go in and fill that red with a green base to help neutralize some of that warmth in order to achieve a nice natural neutral brown. Now, of course, when you're tinting for the brows, you're probably not going to have many product lines that are going to have a straight green pigment that can be added to fill in this red. However, understanding your undertones in your color line are really going to help you to determine what products you do have available that potentially have undertones of green or some version of ash that can help you to reach your desired results at a more neutral base. And so here's what that looks like when we're talking about hair color. You can see each of these hues here, and although they are all brown and relatively close to the same level of darkness in their color, they're all a beautiful brunette. At the very bottom, we can see that this client has a warm tone. It's much more golden than this cooler tone here, which is going to be more ash. And then we have our natural neutral in the middle, which doesn't lean either direction. Breaking that down even further with your cool tones, you're typically going to find cool tones in your clients that are an ashy blonde, they are a cool brunette, silver gray hair clients, or most noticeably blue-black hair. So for clients with cool undertones, if you are looking at their brows and you want to tint, if you're tinting with a product that also has a cool undertone, you may end up with too much coolness in the hair. That's too much ash. And this can actually result in the brows looking flat or dull in color or overly ashed. If your client has those unwanted cool tones and you're needing to add in something to warm it back up, that's where you can go in and look at your complementary colors and choose a tone that will help to neutralize that. So knowing your product line very well is super important so that you know what options you have that could be a warm color that you can add in addition to help balance that out. So just to experiment a little bit here, we've shown two distinctly different hair swatches that both have cooler undertones. And we have overlaid 6 colors from our color wheel, the primary colors and the secondary colors, just to make it really simple. We have yellow, orange, red, green, blue, and violet. Keep in mind when we're looking at this is not exactly what this hair will look like once it's processed with an actual tint, but it can give us a good representation on how different hues on the same sample can really make a difference in the color. that we're looking at. And that's the same when processing. It will really adjust. When analyzing each of these colors and these overlays, you can see clearly that our warm tones featured at the top, we have yellow, orange, and red. These are really going to pull those cool tones back out of this hair swatch and leave it at a more natural shade of the browns or of the blonde. You can see it goes to back a more natural color. And then if we were to take a look at the cooler tones at the bottom, your green, your blue, and your violet, you're starting to get into a space that is almost overly cool. And it's turning the hair more of an unnatural shade of purples or blue or green. It's just not a desirable outcome for this client. So if you have a client that really just doesn't love that cool look, or you know that your product line, your product you're using is a little bit on the cooler side, if you add already cool hair with a cool tint over top, it's going to look unnatural. You can correct using your complementary color or a tint shade that features those undertones to help neutralize and create a more balanced outcome. Now let's take a look at your warm undertones, which are typically going to be found in your golden blondes, your reds, your auburns, and your warm brunettes. So clients who have a lot of natural warmth in their undertones of the hair, they may receive results that are too brassy or overly warm when using standard shades that also feature those warm undertones. So to neutralize this, you may need to add in those green-based browns to neutralize that excessive warmth. So again, when we analyze each of these color swatches, we can see that the overlay of colors with these warmer tones, the yellows, the orange, the reds, it's really just going to amplify that color. It looks much brighter. And if that's your client's goal, then that's absolutely fine. You can definitely stick with a standard shade that has those warm tones to it if that's what they're going for. If they want to work their way to more of a natural brown color versus the red, then your cooler colors, your green, your blue, and your violet can help to tone that down. Now looking at violet specifically, violet is pretty far from neutralizing red on your color wheel. Directly across from violet, that's going to be your yellow. So violet is probably not the color that I would pick to start neutralizing. I would be looking more at my greens and my blues, or some combination of a blue-green, because that is really going to get me back to this nice deepened brown natural shade. You can see a bit closer here that those cool colors really begin to neutralize that red, turning it a shade that's a more natural brown. Now the violet, you'll notice that the violet, it doesn't really do much. If anything, it just dulls that down a bit, but we still have a lot of red. And that's because violet, if you're looking at your complementary colors on your color wheel, violet is directly across from yellow, which is quite a bit further down the line from red. It's not the exact complementary color for the red, and in return will not do as much. Then the second example to show is for blondes, because blondes can also have a lot of warm undertones, and that's really where your violet is going to come into play when you're looking at those lighter blonde shades that fall more towards the yellow versus red. So here, when we overlay the colors, you can see how the warm, it's already causing these to look a lot warmer. If they have a nice golden blonde hairstyle and they want their brows to match, then that can definitely be a great fit for your client who does love more of a honey blonde. But if they're interested in being a brighter, ashier blonde and they want something that matches that, then we can cancel out that warmth using our complementary colors of greens and blues and violets specifically, depending on the exact shade. So you can really see here where it takes that normal golden shade and your blue and your violet really begin to create a beautiful ash cool blonde. And lastly, we have our neutral undertones. So neutral tones are typically going to be found in your medium to dark brunettes or natural taupes. And remember, our neutral tones, they do not fall to one side or the other of the color wheel. They're going to meet directly in the middle. So here is our swatch. Your neutral toned hair, it can usually work well with warm or cool shades, just depending on your client's goal. If they're looking for some more vibrancy or to cool down and match their hair color better, there's lots of options. So if they are that neutral brown and they just think maybe it looks a little too flat on them, it's a little too dull, we can go in and add some warmth to better meet their characteristics. Adding a drop of your yellow, your orange, or your red can help to provide some more depth there. without it turning super brassy. If they feel that a cool color would match them a little bit better, you can add in a small tone of a green, blue, or violet undertone to help to deepen that shade. Now that we know the basics, let's look at some examples that are going to actually show us how to use this knowledge when you talk mixing tint. And this is really where we're going to take your knowledge to the next level and really step up our tinting game. When mixing tint, it's really all about formulation. With a basic tinting line, they're going to feature colors that have both cool and warm tones, so your possibilities are truly endless in what you can create. So definitely be creative. Keep in mind that you always want to follow the tint manufacturer's protocol and their mixing ratios to a T. You also want to ensure that you are using a tint line that allows for custom mixing. There are some tint lines out there that do not recommend that with their products, so just be sure that you do your homework and you know what brand you're using will allow for mixing their colors. So today we are using Intensive, which does allow for mixing, and they are great for mixing. They have some great hues and undertones that really can be used to create some nice outcomes. Their mixing ratio is 1:1, or this is often called 50-50 or equal parts. But basically what this means is we are taking equal parts of our tint color and equal parts of our developer. And you want to keep that in mind when you are learning how to mix, that 1:1 ratio, it does still have to equal out with your tint and your developer. I would 100% recommend that when you are starting out with mixing tints that you use a basic scale to measure your formulation so that you are ensuring the proper mixing ratios with the tint to developer and that you are getting really consistent results every single time. This will also help you to reduce product waste so that you're not overmixing and throwing out a lot of color that's not being used. We're going to look at 3 mixing ratio examples today: adjusting tone slightly, correcting or neutralizing a tone, and creating a couple of new shades. To begin, we will look at adjusting tone slightly. So the first customization color we're going to look at, our formula recommendation is an 80% base shade with a 20% adjusting shade. This is our client A. Client A is starting out with medium brown to dark brown hair. She has some warmer undertones, and her skin tone can fall anywhere from neutral to warm. And we feel that because she has warm undertones in her hair, if we go in with our standard intensive medium brown, it'll probably look fantastic. But with a little slight adjustment of our complementary color, we can slightly reduce some of that warmth and cool it down a little bit so she has a more natural tone to it. So we're going to adjust her formula. We're going to use medium brown as our base shade. So it's 80% of medium brown with 20% addition of ash gray. So this will help to balance out that brown so that it's not overly warm. And so we actually have a quick little demo of how we're going to do that and what this looks like. So we are going to measure out our color every single time. So we're going in right now with our middle medium brown, 80% of that brown color. We're measuring it for consistency. And then we're going to go in with our 20% of ash gray. So here it comes. And we're still weighing this out. Our scale goes by grams, and you can convert this or make it a little easier just to make sure you're getting your exact formulations right if you have a scale that works a little differently. All right. And so now that we've added our color, we're going to go in with our developer. And so the developer has to equal the same exact amount as what your 2 tints do on the scale. So if you haven't cleared it out, you can double that or just clear it out and make sure that it goes to the exact same measurement for equal parts. Once we have all of that dispensed, then we can go in and begin to mix our color. And we're going to make sure that when we're mixing, we are incorporating all of the color together. So you can see we are blending that up really well, mixing our colors, making sure that there's no clumps. And then once we're ready, we'll go in with our color swatch. Now, I do want you to keep in mind when you're looking at our color swatch here, we're starting out with a nice pale yellow. We use these swatches a lot for quality testing, and they do fall a little bit on the warmer side, but they do feature that nice pale yellow. So to get an idea of true color. That's what we use. But with our client A example, and when you're doing this on natural hair, you will have some undertones that will make this color slightly different. So here's our natural swatch once again, and it is beside of our medium brown shade. And that's what that standard color looks like. And then here is our standard color of ash gray beside of that. And then at the end here is our new custom mix. And you can see with our custom mix, we have a gorgeous balanced brown that is not going to be too warm for our client. Next, let's take a look at correcting or neutralizing a tone. So this is going to be very similar to adjusting the tone slightly, except that it requires a bit more of that adjusting shade because we are doing more than just balancing. We are truly correcting a shade at this point that's going to work better in our client's favor. So we're going to do 75% of our base shade to 25% of our adjusting shade. And here is our client example. She's a beautiful bright dark blonde, or she could even be a light brown, but she has some deeper undertones in her hair that leave her feeling a bit more brassy, which she absolutely does not like. But she doesn't want a huge color adjustment. She doesn't want super dark brows that will clash with her skin. She just wants a nice cooled down brow color. So our plan is to correct that warmth with some cooler undertones without taking her super dark. So following our 75% to 25% formula, we're going to do 75% of our natural by intensive. And this shade, it's not very dark and it's going to be good for her. But to address the warmth, we're going to cool this down with the 25% of our ash gray. And what we can expect to receive is a natural toned deep blonde to light brown that will look really great for them. So here's what that looks like. 75% of natural, which has that neutral to a little bit warmer tone, with 25% of the ash gray and equal parts of developer. So we're going to let them get that all mixed in, and you can see on the screen here what that looks like. We're measuring for consistency. We want our products to look exactly the same in results every single time. So measurement is really the key to that. We'll go in with our developer now, making sure that is the perfect weight. And then we're going to mix. We want to make sure we blend all of that color together very nicely. Incorporate our developer. You can use your brush or a whisk if you have one. A small tiny whisk works great for that. We're going to apply it to our swatch, let it process, and then we'll come back and see the result. And I'm excited for this result because we are starting up with that pale blonde. So we have our test strand, and beside of that, we are going to have our natural standard shade. And beside of that, we are going to have our standard shade of the ash gray. And then lastly, we have our new beautiful deep toned blonde. So I think that this is a color that would just absolutely suit this client's preferences so much better, with an easy adjustment of neutralizing those colors she doesn't like to see. All right. So next, we're going to look at some exciting new shades that can easily be created with mixing 50% of a base shade and an adjusting shade. So what I love about doing this is that you're not stuck in the box of only using the standard shades that your product line comes with. It's really quick and easy to mix two colors together to get a really great outcome. So let's see what that would look like on client C. So client C has bright to dark blonde hair. She has light to medium blonde brows, and they have some warmer undertones, and her skin type can be any skin tone. While consulting with client C, we find that she definitely wants to have more definition of her brow hairs. Right now they're too light, but she does not want them to look dark. She does not want to look artificial. She doesn't want to draw away from her features, but we know that our current range of standard tints probably aren't going to be the best fit. Our browns and our natural tones alone are going to be too dark. Our middle blonde, it could work, but it also may not be the best fit because she's going to be a bit more on the warmer golden side, and since she already has a bit of warmer undertones, it may look too brassy for her. So we're really going to create an all new shade using that 50-50 ratio, and this will result in a cooler, deeper blonde. And I'm very excited for you to see these results because we are starting with a warm blonde swatch. So you're going to get a great representation of what this formulation can actually achieve on someone with similar hair. So to get started, we are mixing in equal parts of our shades, our middle blonde and an ash gray. With the same amount of developer, we're going to mix those, blend everything together nicely, and apply this to our hair swatch. We are still weighing out our formulations because even though we've been doing this a while, we want to make sure that the consistency is there and we are getting the same results every single time this client comes in. You can see there, those are exact equal parts. It's not as much of a difference as like with the adjusting. It's very equal. So now we're going to apply that, make sure to cover every single little strand of hair, make sure we saturate very well, and then we'll process for the recommended time. And here's our swatches. So that's what we're starting out with, our pale blonde color here. We have our middle blonde shown here, standard colored, nothing altered on that. And our ash gray, same thing. Beautiful shades on their own. But then we have our custom mix. So you can see how that coolness in the ash gray, it really worked to neutralize our middle blonde. So it took away a lot of that warmth in our middle blonde and we're able to get a more natural, cooled down tone that our client is really going to. And our last example of the day is one of my favorites. We're going to create another new shade using the 50-50 formula, but for a completely different need, which brings us to client D. So client D has deep natural brunette with similar color brows. Any skin tone can be relatable to this. She's had her brows tinted in the past, and it just seems that every shade that she has tried, it just doesn't fit her. They're either way too dark, and sometimes the undertones can look a little too cool, which makes her appearance look dull and flat, or maybe they pick up too much warmth, and then she's more of a chestnut color or an auburn color that doesn't really match her hair. Her hair is more on the natural side, so it doesn't lean one way or the other, and she wants her brows to match that. She wants them natural. So we want to create a custom brown. Our standard brown by Intensive is pretty dark and a little cool, so we think that's going to be too cool for her. Our middle brown is a lighter shade of brown. We think it's a smidge too light. It's going to really just deposit more of that warmth into her hair. So let's mix. We're going to do equal parts of brown, which has that cooler tone, with equal parts of our middle brown, which has a bit of that warmth. And so what we know because of the color wheels and the undertones that are there in each of those colors, we're going to get a more natural, beautiful shade of brown. You'll see here we overmixed just a little bit. We had a little bit too much color than what we wanted. If you add a little bit too much, we can easily adjust that by taking the tail of our brush or an applicator stick, something to just barely, very gently take out as much product as we need to really make sure that we have the perfect mixing ratio. So now we're going to go in with other shade here. We're going to add that in. We're checking our grams, and then we can add our developer, make sure that it is completely equal parts. And then we'll do our mixing as usual. We'll saturate the hair and let it process. So we're going to mix, make sure everything is blended and combined together. And then we will saturate the hair. And here are our swatches. So we have our starting point, pale blonde, and then directly beside that, you can see how dark this is. This is the brown by Intensive. It's a beautiful standard shade of brown, but it is too dark for this client's needs. And then we have our middle brown, which you can see here, also a beautiful brown, but it does have those warm tones that she wasn't really looking for, and which would probably develop more into just warmth for her than anything. So what we've done is combine 50-50 of those two shades and created this really nice, natural, more neutral brown option that's not as dark, but still provides this rich, beautiful chocolatey color that has a fantastic shine to it. And so I just know that she would be ecstatic with this combination of color. So what are our takeaways today? Absolutely know your color wheel and use your color wheel. and get to know your cool tones and your warm tones, your greens, blues, violets, yellows, oranges, and reds very well so that you know what they do and how they work together. Complementary colors. Remember, these sit directly across from each other on your color wheel, and you can use that to your advantage when you're looking to adjust or neutralize those unwanted tones. Choose a brand that allows for custom mixing. Not every single brand is going to allow for custom mixes. You always want to check and make sure that they do. You want to follow the tint lines, mixing ratios. If that's 1:1, you need to follow that exactly. And we like to recommend that you weigh the tint and the developer for precision and consistent results every single time. And then familiarize yourself with that tint line and know the undertones that are in each of those standard shades and what they look like, if they fall more on the greens, the blues, the yellows, so you can use that to make adjustments within your practice to give your clients results that really take your services to the next level. And lastly, get creative. We showed 3 easy mixing ratios that can do a whole lot of power for your clients. We showed how to adjust tones slightly with an 80% base shade to a 20% adjusting shade. We neutralized a tone with 75% of a base shade to 25% of an adjusting shade. And we created 2 new shades with 50% each of a base and adjusting shade. Thank you so much for joining us today. We absolutely cannot wait to see the beautiful results that you're able to achieve by learning these basic fundamentals of color theory and how you can easily use your standard shades with your product line to create and adjust and neutralize different tones and shades within your client's hair. And we know that your clients are truly going to appreciate this extra level of detail that will go into their mixing formulations. Have a great day.